Prominent Evolution Series pumps come ready to run from the factory. The hydraulics have already been bled during factory testing, but after an annual change of the hydraulic fluid or diaphragm, the pump will need to have the hydraulics bled to get rid of any air behind the diaphragm. In this video, we will walk through that process. When possible, it is best practice to start the pump up with water. The first step to priming the hydraulics is to turn the stroke length to 0%. Remove the bleed valve cover and remove the bleed valve. Set aside for now. Check the hydraulic oil in the turret to verify that the oil level is showing on the dipstick but below the high mark. You should see air bubbles burping out of where you just removed the bleed valve. If you let the pump sit, most of the air will naturally bleed itself out, making the bleeding process easier. Loosely put the bleed valve back in. Prior to moving our pump to the test stand, we will turn the stroke length to 100% to aid in getting the hydraulics bled and the pump back up and running. Make sure you loosen the lock prior to attempting to turn the stroke length adjustment. At this point, we have moved our pump to our test stand with a suction line pulling from a bucket of water. Start the pump up and verify the diaphragm rupture gauge is at 0 psi. If your gauge is reading more than 0 psi, remove the gauge and allow any air or fluid to escape. Replace the gauge and we can now remove the bleed valve cover and loosen the bleed valve. You should see air burping out of the bleed valve area. Add additional hydraulic oil if needed so you can see a little bit of hydraulic oil rising and falling in the bleed valve hole. Once all of the air is bled out, loosely tighten the bleed valve and replace cover so water cannot come in from the discharge valve. You can now see that all of the air is out from behind the diaphragm and we start to pull water up into the liquid end. Once the pump is primed, go back and fully tighten the bleed valve and bleed valve cover. The pump is now ready to be introduced to back pressure and be returned back to service.